I think we heard the head of MI6 and the CIA a week or so ago there in London talking about this Ukrainian Kursk counteroffensive that was starting to raise concerns in Moscow amongst the elite. Like, what the hell is going on here? How is this even possible after all that the expense Russia has gone to in this war? Kind of like the reaction in the United States when the Tet offensive in 1968, when all Americans had been told that we were winning in Vietnam, and then all of a sudden the North Vietnamese launched this incredible surprise counteroffensive. Russia has been at war with the West for years, in everything except direct kinetic conflict, disinformation, sabotage of our infrastructure, attacking cables, attacking our elections, violating airspace, challenging us in international waters. So the sooner we start thinking like the Russians do, the sooner we can end their very aggressive activities. What they do, the threats constantly, because they see so far, we really have been reluctant
So,
to address their bullying.
so do you agree with Anne Applebaum then that we shouldn't take too seriously this sort of saber rattling from Putin then?
Well, I think she's saying, and I would agree, of course, you take it serious. They have thousands of nuclear warheads, and they clearly do not care how many innocent people are killed, including their own. But the thing is, they're not going to use it because there is zero benefit for them to use it. Nowhere on the battlefield, nowhere on the planet where Russia uses a nuclear weapon of any type does it make the situation better for them. It only
Mm.
makes the situation worse. Their only benefit with nuclear weapons is the threat that they might use one, because they see so far the United States and therefore many allies continue to hesitate to do what needs to be done to help Ukraine actually defeat Russia.
And yet Putin remains so unpredictable, doesn't he? And there's always that in the back of your mind, isn't there, when you hear these threats and you sort of think, well, he's done that before. He's crossed a few, the red lines have been crossed and nothing has happened. He's unpredictable.
I would not say he's unpredictable. I would say he is doing exactly what a dictator who does not have popular support, and he has overstepped on his estimation of how the rest of the world might react to what he's doing.
Mm.
But I would not say he's unpredictable. He's not crazy. Um, Russia is not in an existential war. I do think that he is concerned about popular opinion in Moscow and in Saint Petersburg. That's why they recruit almost no soldiers from these two major metropolitan areas, because they don't want to have a bunch of funerals going through the streets of Moscow and St. Petersburg. So he is conscious of what the public thinks, but
Right.
what really matters is this circle of oligarchs who are the ones that keep him in power.
Mm.
And the more pressure we can put on them, where they finally decide that Putin has done enough damage to Russia, then it will be done for him.
Come back to both of those points you've just made in just a second, what the Russian public thinks of the war and the oligarchs. But the expectation seems to be very much that the US and the UK will allow Kyiv to use long-range missiles. Do you see that as being a game changer or not so much?
I'm always reluctant to say that something is a game changer, because one weapon system, one platform by itself does not necessarily alter the direction of the conflict. However, of course, Ukraine is already able to use Storm Shadow and ATACMS, including the 300-kilometer range. The difference will be hopefully a change in policy about restrictions on Ukraine's ability to use these against targets inside Russia.
Mm.
That will make a difference in terms of a lot less innocent Ukrainian people are going to be killed, and it will create dilemmas for Russia in terms of can they just do it will deny them sanctuary, which our policies have in effect created for them, create difficulties for them logistically, their airfields that are in range. And as the Supreme Allied Commander, General Cavoli, said, the way you defeat Russia's advantage of mass is with precision, and precision allows you to hit headquarters, logistics, artillery, and airfields. When you take those out, it really doesn't matter how many thousands of untrained, unlucky infantry the Russians have.
Right, interesting. So those are the kind of targets you think they'll go for. But is there
Absolutely.
also a sort of broader aim, do you think, to bring the war to the attention of ordinary Russians, as you were alluding to earlier?
I have struggled to understand why the Russian people continue to tolerate what's going on, but I don't think
Maybe they
we're
just
going to
don't
see.
know.
Uh, that's true. I mean, they are not. They're unlike most other populations. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Russians in the streets protesting. Of course, Putin has spent the last 20 years making himself coup-proof and building up an enormous internal security apparatus. But the ones that do matter are those oligarchs
Right,
that
yeah.
stand to lose the most if this war continues.
So you talked earlier about putting pressure on the oligarchs. How is that best done? And is there any sign that they're cracking at all?
Well, I think we heard the head of MI6 and the CIA a week or so ago there in London talking about this Ukrainian Kursk counteroffensive that was starting to raise concerns in Moscow amongst the elite. Like, what the hell is going on here? How is this even possible after all that the expense Russia has gone to in this war? Kind of like the reaction in the United States when the Tet offensive in 1968, when all Americans had been told that we were winning in Vietnam, and then all of a sudden the North Vietnamese launched this incredible surprise counteroffensive. That's kind of effect I think that we're seeing in Moscow.
Hmm.
Now, what will really bring it home, though, is if we get better and more effective in the use of our economic tools. I mean, Russia is still making a lot of money
Mm.
exporting oil to India,
Yeah,
some to China, but especially to India. And India has turned into a gigantic laundering operation that helps Russia. So we have
right.
got to figure out how to shut that off.
Fascinating stuff. General Ben Hodges, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for the privilege.